So the research shows that the single most important ingredient to long-term career satisfaction is the intrinsic nature of the work. So what does that mean in our kind of terms? That if people enjoy their job, they are more likely to have long-term career satisfaction. So if they do more of what they like than what they don't, retention is easier. So uncovering those unconscious skills, the things we do naturally, is so important for us to harness. Because if we know what they are, and our leaders know what they are, then we can use them to our benefit. So I'm going to talk about 3 ways you can use them. The first is you can leverage them. So one client I worked with, she was in a startup, tech of course, and it grew and grew and grew. And she had started out being the problem solver. She loved solving problems. In her case, she didn't even care what the problem was, just let me solve it. In some people's case, they want to solve only certain problems, but not her. So by the time she gets 1,000 people under her, it's no longer valuable for her to go deep on one thing. It's much more valuable for her to take that I love problem solving and turn it to how do I get the most leverage out of all the people that work for me. And by doing that, she became one of the most successful CEOs that I've worked with. So again, not changing, but really identifying what is my sweet spot. Second one is the flip of the sweet spot. I like to call it the kryptonite. So the flip of your superpower. So I was working with a gentleman and he came and he was a very successful leader. And he said, I'd like some coaching. And when I asked what the intention was, he said, I don't know. I said, okay, let's start with that. And what we looked at was unconsciously what are his superpowers. And what came out was that he knew how to create a harmonious team. People loved working for him. Everyone in the whole huge organization was always trying to get on his teams. But when we looked at what's the flip side of that, the kryptonite, so if you only ever use your right arm, your left one gets weak. Or the old adage, your greatest strength also is your greatest weakness. So we went through what could a lot of different downsides to harmony be. And when we got to conflict avoidance, he went, oh, because that was it. And he found that in his desire to avoid conflict and the superpower of having harmony, he had lost a key component to getting to the best idea. And that was the component of intellectual debate, intellectual competition, intellectual conflict. If you're in a team and no one says, hey, I think that couldn't work because of that, or let's bring this forward this way, then you're not going to get the best. So he looked at what that meant and he started to run his teams differently. And he encouraged dissent. And if no one had bring up a negative idea to something, he'd actually call on someone and say, okay, you're going to play our opposer today. Bring it on. The third example is a little different. It's about the perception people have of you. And if you understand what your great strength is, you can understand how they perceive it and how it can be reshaped. So what do I mean? So I was working with a woman who ran a large service organization. And people were worried that because she was so good at asking questions all the time, that she didn't know how to make a decision. The lady ran an organization, a service one. She knew how to make a decision. But that perception had plagued her. And so what she was able to do was really think about, okay, why might they think I'm not making decisions? And it turned out it was because she asked a lot of questions. And we looked at, well, what's the unconscious reason that you ask a lot of questions? And she said, well, it's to have buy-in. Because if I ask those questions and everybody buys into it, then they're going to come along and my decision's a whole lot easier. But the other people around her who were used to making these decisions fast, it doesn't matter what other people think, didn't get that. So she had to re-educate them as to what the benefit of her superpower was so that she got credit for it. So you can use it to leverage yourself, you can use it to find your kryptonite, you can use it to understand how other people perceive you. So let's start on that idea. How do we go to what we enjoy? Because I suspect most of the people we're working with are very used to enjoying the end point, and now we're going to enjoy the process. So let's go to the unconscious.